to call it order. We can have a roll call.
Fred Gallagher. Mike Smith.
Tim Moore.
Alice Reel.
Tish Gallagher.
Dale Sites.
Okay, so we're missing Florence, who I haven't heard from. But we have a new member this month, Melissa Pavone, who is not here because she just let me know this afternoon that she is ill. And as we all know here, we don't want anybody ill in a room like this with everybody so close and everything. Because, Fred and Tish and I and everybody else, except Gail, has been ill with us. Okay, all right, so has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes?
Yeah.
The only thing I couldn't remember was where that Emily had said that maybe I just missed this, on page 3. The proposed extension of the dike did not cover the strand. Is that correct?
Mhm.
I don't know why it didn't ring a bell to me. No.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if she'd actually said that, then then I don't have any problem with the minutes. Does anybody else have any changes? Okay, somebody want to
Make a motion that the minutes be approved as submitted.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm glad that Antonina is here because there's been a lot of discussion. I wouldn't say action, but when we last met, we were talking about discussions with the Army Corps of Engineers. And as a matter of fact, let me pass this around. This is the letter that Antonina sent to the Army Corps of Engineers asking for help. Now, according to the Army Corps, you don't have to do any formal, don't fill out a form or anything like that. You just request. So that's what we did as a city through Antonina. And we specifically asked about section 219, which had been discussed before and also was part of the template letter that we had been sent, but also for any other help that could be, that any other portion of the Corps' mandate that could help us. So I know that Ed Voigt, who was sort of our liaison there, responded, right, Antonina?
Yeah, so I've been in touch with Ed and Scott, both with the Army Corps. And in addition to that letter, I'll be sending 4 more letters with 3 other sections, which they think maybe have applicable funding available to us. And then I'm going to send a general letter, which just asks for any funding, if they can find any other area, which may be able to assist us.
Right.
So I'll be sending those out tomorrow.
That was their recommendation.
Mhm.
Okay. Could we get a copy? Could I get?
Yeah, once I send it.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So
Okay.
4 different letters?
Yeah. So there's section 14, section 205, one other section that I can't remember off the top of my head, and then a general letter.
And you can't do them all together.
They said just send them separately. So.
It's fine, because, I mean, the more sections we can refer to, the better. I think that section 14, if I remember, deals with historic buildings. So, that's a possibility, although I think it's specifically for erosion. But if you're talking about the Strand, I'm sure there's probably erosion along the riverbank there. So,
So not to this letter, but I guess in the minutes that, the estimated damage was like $6 million.
That was for the hazards modeling.
that was
Yeah, but
a
that-
big
what's that covering?
concern.
Half the Strand? I mean, that's very low.
Yeah.
You look at the reassessment values and, you're gonna get at least 10 times that I would expect.
Well, I thought the same thing, and Gail has been in contact with Emily about that. Is she revising that a bit or not?
So following the meeting, I sent an email to her and asked if I could get a map that I could blow up, because from the PDF map, it looked like that they talked about making extensions to the dike, and so I was assuming to cover all of Newcastle. And when you looked at the map, from what I could see from the PDF, it was only between Army
Army.
Creek,
Army Creek,
and Gambacorta was a little extension. And so I asked if I could get a map that I could blow up and see, and that's all that it was. It doesn't cover Battery Park, it doesn't cover the Strand, it doesn't cover Buttonwood area between the
When you
dikes,
say it doesn't, what are you referring
the
to?
extensions that they modeled. So supposedly the model.
So even at $6 million without covering them,
Right, and then if you look at where all the dots are in the floodplain, it's in those areas which aren't
I
covered
think I already
by
said
the extensions. And so I sent questions back to her, and she said she was going to talk to whoever ran the model, and I haven't heard anymore.
Okay.
So my question is, I mean, supposedly this model is something that's used for cost benefit when you apply for grants,
Right.
for FEMA.
Mhm.
And if we're going for some of these grants through FEMA, and the modeling hasn't been done correctly, and we're getting the $6 million result.
Yeah.
And then that's what, our chances are
I don't
based
know that
on.
It hasn't been done correctly. I think it was only done on whatever portion that grant to do that model portion covered. Do you know what I mean? I don't know that it was for the
yeah,
entire.
they do, but why wouldn't they do, they have enough money to do all that?
it also
I-
didn't take into consideration sea level rise, if I remember correctly. It's just today,
Right.
not any future.
And that was something
hazards.
Emily was gonna look into. I don't know why it was done the way it was done when it was originally bid or, applied for. I can look further into that though.
Well, she
look at-
said she was going to get back. I think I
Yes.
copied you and I
She is.
copied Alice.
Mhm. But I'll look further into the original grant.
I mean, time is kind of the essence, if there's any money out there, we'll
Oh, yeah.
get fast,
It
but
probably,
the $6 million, if you're looking down there where there are any structures, what's the $6 million? That was the geese or something? I mean, there's nothing in that area.
also, Fred,
Wow.
the PIFR had looked at like 600 buildings, were in danger. And the way she looked at it, there were like 239 or something that would be affected. So I don't know, it seems strange. And if we're looking at the way she's looking at it, let's not do it. Because, it's to put that out there, that the only thing that we can get is $6 million.
Well, it's like putting out bad data if you don't have something
Yeah.
that's accurate.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, it was very distressing. We talked to her, when she was at the meeting last time. And I asked about that. I said, is this going through exactly what FEMA demands as far as, the study? And she said, yes, it was. But again, I don't think they took into consideration any sea level rise, which is, that has to, in order for us to, if we're trying to prevent destruction due to sea level rise, then, that study has to take in sea level rise. I think makes sense to me.
Well, yeah, but I think first you've got to get all of
The
the
base.
scopes got to be correct in terms of the
Yeah.
geography.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then-
Because, Kevin Donnelly was at this meeting, remember with everybody here? And he said something like, well, why are we even looking at, you got the PIFR that says it's some ridiculously high number that would, do you remember that? It went through, we could do like 150 million or something like that. So, and I looked through the PIFR again, I couldn't exactly find where he was talking about it, except in the sense that if we didn't do anything, the damage would be like 150 million or something like that. So, I don't know. It's very distressing, not a little distressing.
Is
It's
there
very
a way we can get clarification or
Yeah, well, we have
appeal it or
to
something?
get Emily to rethink
we
this,
need
I
to-
think.
We need to get answers to more about the model and how it
Yeah.
was run and
Mhm.
what it's covering.
Yeah, not just the answer.
Right,
the
not,
answer seems very
right, not,
strange.
yes.
you know.
Yeah, $6 million, I mean, that would take care of the Reed House. Maybe,
Maybe.
And
anyway. Okay, so the other thing that we were looking at well, actually, Antonetta's done most of the work here, but all the work. Let me show you this too. This is a letter that I wrote that asked from, Antonina asked that we put
Do you want me to
this.
give a little bit of background on the project?
Huh?
You want me to give a little bit of background? on the
Yeah.
project? Okay, so this is the BRIC grant, which is the Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities grant through DEMA and FEMA. I mentioned it and we had a discussion about it at the council meeting. If you were there, you watched. It does require up to a 25% match, and we're gonna look at extending raising and extending the dikes, finally making a decision based on all these, documents of consideration, and then make a decision of how to move forward and plan that out. This is all that's gonna be put into the grant. We're working on that whole process. We have to get it back to DEMA by April 1st, and council did commit to provide up to the 25% match based on the cost assessment that we received from AECOM. So yes, of course, we asked Alice to provide a letter of support as the chair. And we did send it to DEMA to review and give us any feedback if we should accommodate the language to match the request
Doesn't
of
say
the
anything about climate
administration.
change.
Right. So any additional letters of support that you'd like to supply, we'd appreciate that.
Antonina, I ran into Suzanne Souter the other day, and she said, I think you and she had been on Capitol Hill
Yes, last
recently,
Wednesday.
and
Mhm.
they said something like, forget the brick things this year.
They were unaware of when the final NOFA would come out, because it did come out, then it was rescinded, and then it's just gone back and forth so many times. But regardless, we want to work through it now, through the whole application process. That way we're prepared. At whatever time when it's finally dropped, we're gonna
I
apply.
totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I just don't want us to get our hopes up here
No.
because it doesn't look real great.
No,
because
and
of
on the
everything's being
federal,
cut in the
right,
federal
on the
government.
federal level, everything that is new is kind of being held right
Yeah.
now. So everybody's in limbo. But, if we don't apply for it through the BRIC grant, then we'll find another avenue. We can try to look for private funding. Like we want to do something as we know.
Absolutely.
So this won't go to waste, this
Yeah.
exercise, if it doesn't actually go through.
Yeah, and I think the Army Corps is a little different in that they have money that's already devoted to this county, but also they do specific projects. It's not just a whole bunch of money now try to
Yeah.
get your share of it. They do specific projects and they can be okayed by your congressional delegation,
Yeah.
which I think is a better prospect than,
Mhm.
Relying on the federal grant.
Yeah, they did, the Army Corps did raise a little bit of concern because of the continuing, resolutions for the federal budget. So they are, while they're proceeding and continuing with all of the projects that they have, they're a little weary as well about the future as everyone in the federal government. So there's partial hope, but it's not a guarantee for any of this.
Yeah. Well, as you said, though, we have to be ready to
Right.
pounce
Mhm.
and show the work that we've done as soon as any money becomes available.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
which brings me to the third thing.
Could I ask a question? Would you like other letters of support
Yeah,
from?
if you don't mind,
All
that
right.
would be helpful. Anything, that you can provide to really show the need is helpful.
And.
Yes, I
to
can-
you?
To me, to my attention, and then I'll forward it on with the grant application, but I can send everyone an email. If that would be
Yeah,
more helpful.
that'd be great.
Okay,
Yeah. And we have the Strand covered. You're in Van Dyke Village, right? May?
Yes, yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, I know that there's some potential flooding there too, right, with the end of the broad dike.
Yes.
So maybe you could mention that.
Happy to,
Because that's part of the dike thing that you're trying to
right?
get funding for.
Our flood comes from the marsh.
Right, yeah, yeah.
And
And,
ours can come from either
yeah,
on Bull Hill.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I wish Florence were here. I'd ask her too. But anyway, the bond bill.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that, where we are with that? And is there something we can do to help? I mean, I don't know what we're exactly looking for there or asking for. Have we decided that yet? or-
No, we haven't. So I'm working with council to pursue different projects. Last year, we pursued funding for many of the roads, which were, of course,
That's
approved.
typically what we do. road
Yes, we do a lot of
projects, yeah.
roads. We did some funding for the park. We did funding for the police station. So this year we'll continue to pursue road projects and then look at some other projects. If there is something specific, if you want me to pursue funding, maybe to, in lieu of the BRIC grant, if that is not coming out, I can talk to council about that.
Okay,
To
so
pursue
we have
that,
to think
that's
about
fine.
that for the, that's.
But it's a large
Okay.
sum of money that was projected for that project, around 260,000. And I don't know that the bond bill would cover that much, but it doesn't hurt to try. I applied
Which project are you referring to?
for the project, that we're applying for the BRIC grant.
Oh,
with the
okay.
Feasibility.
All right, okay.
I
Well, we
applied for
gotta take away
over a
from that
million.
all of our
last year.
road stuff too. for-
Right,
they go-
exactly. So they're not gonna cover everything. I
Yeah.
did hear, that of course, with everything, like funding is very tight right now. So we can always apply and, hope for the best.
Well, what was it, Tim, what did, Delaware City ask for, or was it you who were telling me about them?
No, I forget the
They
exact.
asked for
The
planning and
community
construction, right?
It
Reinvestment
was
fund,
community redevelopment.
redevelopment.
Yeah, which
fund.
is the same thing.
Is that,
It's the
yeah,
same, oh, it is the
Yeah.
same thing?
and
Okay.
they asked for, they got planning and construction, is that what you told me about?
They got it, yes. they got
So,
that.
I mean, we could-
They covered the whole cost of it.
Right, so maybe we just, have to say, in order to, prevent flooding of
Mhm.
the Route 9 or something, I don't know if that would be considered to be a road project, I'm not sure. Or maybe, a neighborhood, like, Buttonwood or, that area behind, Florence's house, if we have to be very specific about it. Because I know they're gonna do that pervious stuff for, the
Yeah.
other side, right?
Delta. Mhm.
Yeah, so, I don't know, does anybody have any thoughts about that? What we should be asking for in the bond bill? How about if we think about it, and if you think of something, then let me know, or let Antonina and I know, and we'll, discuss that, but, yeah.
But the redevelopment fund is the same, or is it part of?
It's the same. Everyone just calls it bond bill because I think it was called that for so long historically, but yes. When it comes out, it's called like CRF.
Okay, so that's where we are right now. And I do want to emphasize that, even though funding is difficult right now, we do have to do the work, prepare for when the funding it will eventually be here.
Yeah.
Life goes on. But anyway, going forward, I thought we could discuss maybe some innovative solutions to non-riverine flooding. You mentioned private funding just a second ago, which I was surprised because I was thinking that might be a long shot, but
It might be, but we'll pursue anything. if it's
yeah.
fine.
Do you know of some place with private funding or no?
I have to do some more research into that, but.
Yeah, now, you don't have to do all the
Definitely.
research, we can do that,
Well,
some of
thank
that.
you.
So, who wants to do research on private funding?
I don't know.
No?
I don't know.
I mean,
It
the only
sounded
one,
like Anthony.
You just have to Google it,
I mean, the only one I know of is the Long.
Yeah, and
The
I don't know what they're gonna use
the
that.
Longwood
But a
funding.
lot of them, but like, a lot of people hit. They don't, I mean,
Yeah,
but, they'll.
but I don't know
And they
whether
live
they,
off of the trust
Yeah.
from DuPont, it's a nonprofit, Longwood's nonprofit.
There's gotta be some environmental
This is what I'm
organizations
thinking,
that,
there must be people who are river protectors or something, that are thinking about innovative ways to prevent flooding along the
river
rivers.
keepers, maybe?
Yeah, river keepers, something like that,
I don't know that they have money.
I don't either,
I'd
I
say.
think,
They're usually trying
RFK
to raise
Junior used to be
money.
head of that.
Hmm.
Aren't they usually trying to raise money? I get letters from them.
Well, maybe they're raising money for projects like this. I don't know. But anyway, if I will take a look at other things, I think we have to pursue any
I'll look at it.
possibility.
I'll
Okay, we
look
can all
too.
do it. And then I was thinking, is there something, and maybe Tim, you know this better than anybody here. Is there something that's an easy fix that we could do, for instance, with, plantings or something like that, I was thinking that the trustees putting that riprap is probably gonna help, with flooding in the park, I would think to a certain extent.
I don't know that'll.
Yeah,
To a certain extent, but I mean, we held off on that for probably a year, hoping this committee, would come up with some some funding to do it or something, or at least give us a level, to go up to. And when I told them, doesn't look like there's any money coming anytime soon, we just went in and did it. I mean.
So they
you know,
consider
I
it to
didn't
be
go
a,
about it.
they consider it to be a flood prevention thing.
It's erosion.
It's erosion.
Say that again. Is it this same elevation?
I believe it's the same
Or is it-
elevation. I don't think it went up at all.
Yeah.
So we're.
No,
we're
because if it
cleaning
did,
up.
there'd be rocks piled up next to the
Yeah,
walkway.
yeah, I just wasn't sure, that's all.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not sure I understand what you said, because we have stated what we think would be a good elevation, 13.5 feet. But what they're saying is you have to raise the dikes and then you go from there.
What they're saying is they want to know, I proposed and said, we need to know what level everything else is going to be, because if we're too high, we're pushing water the other way. If we're too low,
And we're
we're
still,
going to bring it all in on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
other.
yeah,
So we were
Yeah.
looking for a definitive number
right.
and said, it's not going to happen anytime soon.
No,
So we went in
okay,
and did the work.
all right. Then here, okay, so I'm just like spitballing. And I thought, who is the best at preventing flooding? Who in the world?
the Dutch.
The
Yeah.
Dutch.
Is there some connection we can make with somebody over there about finding out what they would suggest? It's not, I mean, why not, right?
They have some pretty fancy.
Yeah, there's
Stuff
a
going
lot
on
of
over
capital
there.
involved. I've seen of their prevention.
Well, maybe
They're
they
not
haven't,
cheap.
maybe they've been doing this for hundreds of years. Maybe they started out with something that wasn't quite so technologically advanced,
Yeah,
with
just
the
like what
water's
we
been
have down on
rising.
the dike.
Huh?
That's what they started out with.
The dikes,
what we
yes, we
have.
have their dikes, yeah.
We have the benefit of them having
Yeah.
settled here,
Right.
so there may be a way to
Yeah.
leverage that.
I think, I'm gonna take a look at that unless somebody else wants to do that, but I
No,
thought,
Alice, I went to the Rascal Summit, and
Hmm?
didn't they mention, one of the groups mentioned that at the Rascal Summit? Was it Bowers
they mentioned,
or Lewis?
you mean about the Netherlands being,
Mhm.
so, yeah.
I think it was
yeah,
either
who
Lewis
was
or
it? Yeah.
Bowers.
We recently went to the Rascal Summit, remember the Rascals? Not the little rascals, the rascal from.
And what does rascal stand for? We've gotta make that clear when we're talking, so.
Well, Mike, you were talked about rascal, you looked at it last month.
that was? Oh, I didn't call it that, it was,
Okay.
Some catchy name,
yeah.
real long.
Well, it's, I'm trying to think, it's in a group. that-
Resilient and Sustainable Communities.
Yeah,
something.
yeah, it's a group where lots of groups that help people with their flooding and their resiliency efforts all get together. So it's like a clearinghouse for all of the people that, the people can come to one place instead of having to go to each individual organization. And yeah, it's put together by Sea Grant, #1. And by the way, Sea Grant is also in danger, kind of, because they are funded by NOAA. And at this meeting, I said to Danielle Swallow, what's happened in NOAA? And she says, a lot of the people that she's dealt with suddenly disappeared. And she wasn't even able to contact them afterwards because she only had their work number and their work email. So she doesn't even know where they are. And that was, I think there's been a round of, firing since then. So this is, it's gonna get worse before it gets better, I guess. Okay, the other, so I will, I'll see, why not? We'll contact somebody from the Netherlands. I'll find out who it is. We'll beg them, as their former colony. Anyway, and then I thought, because I was at their meeting last month, and we had our meeting, then I made a presentation, to the council. And they were very appreciative of our efforts, and they also said, understanding that it's a tough slog right now, but we have to do this in order to be ready. Anyway, what was I talking about now? Which I, same thing I did when I was making the presentation. But anyway, I was thinking that, we need a map. Oh, I know. Florence Smith had a friend came over before, the council meeting started, saying that she lives in Boothurst. And she wanted to talk to our committee about the flooding that happens in Boothurst. Now, I never heard there was flooding in Boothurst, but, you know, and nobody's contacted me since then.
Where's the water coming from? It's gotta be rainwater, right?
Yeah, it's sure to be non-riverine
Yeah. I mean,
drainage, yeah. But anyway, it's
That's
flooding,
one of the newest developments around here.
yeah.
So it sounds like we're talking about possibly a builder issue.
Yeah,
Rather
maybe,
than,
maybe.
It's still been in existence for
Yeah,
years.
newest isn't exactly, you know, yesterday
Yeah.
here.
In Newcastle.
Newcastle, it's a relative term.
That's
It's a
right.
new-
I've been here 14 years, means I'm a newbie. Yes, that's
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
It showed up.
You are.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that made me think, we need to do a survey of where the flooding is, so we know exactly what we're talking about. I feel, you know, and this is a good time to do it because, you know, there are things that are sort of, in limbo right now. So I don't know how we would do that exactly. Does anybody have any suggestions or feel like that's a decent thing to do?
Or you could put something in the weekly and have them contact you.
You know, I asked in the weekly for people to send pictures, and I only got one person that sent me something.
Do you know Miss Smith's friend's name? I can
I
reach
don't,
out. to-
but I can find out from Florence.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And I know, Buttonwood floods as well, but I'm not exactly sure where it floods.
So are
It's
you,
not
That was in the
are
marshy
you
area,
looking
right?
for a map on when it floods? Like
I'm looking for
picture, like
exactly-
pictures of
yeah.
when it floods?
No, not pictures. I asked for pictures before, but now I'm asking for locations of flooding. And it isn't the same thing as the FEMA map, because that is riverine flooding. You know, that, when the river overflows, this is what happens. But this is where you have drainage, you have a big rivery, you know, rain event, and then there's flooding around town.
We want one for both.
Yes, but I mean, we have one FEMA. FEMA is closer to what we need for river flooding, but we don't have one. Now, I know there's a lot of flooding at, for instance, Sixth and Chestnut Street. I think that corner is always a little wet. And obviously at the Three Countries Pizza, Three Countries? Anyway, Three Countries, yeah. There's flooding there. I know there's flooding on 4th Street because I've heard from a person there who says that at certain times her backyard is a total pool. And it
On
goes
Fourth-
over
Where on Fourth?
28 4th, East 4th Street. Do you know where, what's her face? lives?
East Fourth.
Lisa,
So it's on the
Whitaker?
left-hand side.
yes, you know where Lisa Whitaker lives?
No.
Okay, she's got
So
that
it's
big.
gotta be on the other
house.
side
It's
of
on
the,
it's on the other side of
it's on
Market.
the east side of Delaware, but it's between the graveyard and Delaware Street. on
Yes,
Fourth.
yes. And she said, Lisa Whitaker has complained before about this. She lives right next door to 28. I think 28 is an older woman who's would hate me to describe her that way. But anyway, but her backyard is just, you know, totally overrun when there's a certain kind of event. It's not all the time, but you know. But I'm sure Boothurst isn't flooding all the time either. It has to be a big event of some kind.
That's interesting because she's not backing up to marshland or anything.
No, she's not. No. So I would like to know where all this is happening. And
Well, and you might
Well, it
want
does-
some
it-
picture
it does-
too.
It does back up the marshland.
Hmm?
It does back up the
she
marshland.
does. On
In
4th
where?
Street?
24th Street?
On East Fourth.
In backyards.
Yeah, because you have the same, Peters,
Peters
the
graveyard.
old. the
No,
ball
we're
field.
talking about the block before
We're
St.
talking about
Peter's.
the block east, 28 East. Fourth Street?
It's 4th and Chestnut.
Between Delaware Street.
No, in
No,
Harmony.
it's the other
And
one,
Harmony.
Delaware and Harmony.
Yeah,
28
It's
would
the
be
other-
in that block, in the
between-
first block.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, you're closer to Delaware Street then.
Yeah. But I mean, it sounds, she is very concerned about, standing water in her backyard, you know, and health wise and everything. So I get that. like I said, it doesn't happen all the time, but it does every now and then, so I'd
Yeah,
like to know
absolutely.
where
Right
that's
next to the-
happening.
Same, straight next to the graveyard.
Maybe we could have a topographical, is that the correct word, topographical map
So
of
they're-
the?
Their backyard goes right to the grave.
Yeah, oh, what is that? Is that just the
It's a
yards? No, I know that part. No, I
Yeah,
mean, is that,
no, it's just, yeah, I just took an aerial view
wow.
of it.
So there's a lot of, but you know, is that next to
This is
a
St. Peter's
marsh
Church,
though?
the St. Peter's
No,
Church,
there's
the
no-
graveyard's there.
no
No,
marsh
there's
there.
no marsh.
There's
I
no
was thinking
marsh
it was
there.
down
You're
here.
thinking the block
I
lower,
was
yeah.
thinking it was down
Oh, no,
Whereas
that's not,
here. This
no.
here is all swamp and all over. the
Yeah,
road.
that wouldn't surprise me in the next block.
Next block, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Well, let me contact, I'll contact Florence and ask her for the name of that woman and I'll also see if I can get a hold of Lisa and maybe we'll get at least that much. I don't know, does it ever flood down here? Because this is a very low area in the city, right here where the police station is, which is a concern if we really ever had a flood, you know, that the police would be not able to either get in or out of
No,
their
I
station.
believe this area has been elevated. It's, I believe the lot that the police station is on, it has been elevated when it was built.
It's what?
It was
Elevated.
elevated,
Yeah.
Oh, really? Because that's not what the Piffers said.
really.
I never
Yeah,
remember seeing any flooding here.
Yeah, there's no flooding here.
well, not flooding now, but I mean, if we had a flood, a really big flood, you know, well, anyway, okay. I don't want it to flood here, you
Right.
know, so, but I'd like to know where it is flooding, so we at least have some sense of what the extent of the problem. As far as non-riverine flooding, this would be, I believe, riverine flooding if it were to happen here. Cause you know that the Glebe Cemetery has flooded
Right.
very
Yeah.
badly and it's right
Mhm.
across the street, right?
But it's
Yeah,
right
but-
backs into a marsh,
Yeah,
glebe.
yeah,
So when the water comes in there,
yeah.
it's gonna go.
Right.
Backs in pretty close to the river too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you've got the river, you got the dike and then
The
you know, some
cemetery.
marsh and then you're in the glebe.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's not far at all.
No. But it's a distance from here.
Yeah.
We're higher than it.
So does anybody have any other possibilities of thinking about what we could do while we're waiting for
So,
the world
so
to
one,
change?
so one thing, Council President Souter sent an email about DENREC and doing Friday visitations. So, and I didn't know if anyone had followed up. I sent
Friday,
you-
what?
So, all right, so I printed out the email because I wasn't sure if anyone had followed up.
But I saw that and then I
Greg-
forgot about
Greg
it.
Patterson, who's the new secretary of DENREC,
Mhm.
spoke briefly to a meeting of the Delaware League of Local Governments, which, Council President Souter attended. He said that Governor Meyer's priorities include climate change and our coastline. Mr. Patterson's been holding field trip Fridays when they visit various vulnerable sites, such
Ooh,
as the Indian River Bridge and the Brandywine River area. It might be good to contact his staff to see if we could get a visit to Newcastle. So I wasn't sure, do you remember that? I know, I think it
I
went
do
to you.
remember
He
getting
came
it.
to our legal local governance meeting about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
3 weeks ago. And, yeah, he mentioned that. So. if
So I
you want to set
wonder if-
something up-
So who would do that?
One of Suzanne or I. So
Okay.
are you interested in that?
Mhm.
Okay, good.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because DENREC might be another avenue
Yeah.
to some funding. And he's familiar with our situation
Mhm.
from before he was in the governor's office.
Yeah, he's been around a lot
Right.
of organizations. So, yeah.
Okay.
Actually, you know, when I went to a meeting, this is a couple of, you know, maybe 4 or 5 months ago. And I met that fellow who was with the, you know, the group that got together for Bay Beaches group, you know, I forget what his name is now. I could find it. But anyway, he said we should contact Greg Patterson and ask for a meeting.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned that, but I don't think we ever actually did anything about that, but, you know, but if Friday visits are probably just as well, I mean, you're show and tell at the same time, you know, so, anyway. Okay, any, other ideas, initiatives? Could throw out anything. As you can tell from what I was just talking, I'm looking for ideas.
Well, I think we've got several to work on here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right, so additional comments by task force members? Any comments?
Yeah.
Again, I wanted to say that the council did, say thank you for our efforts, and I appreciated that. With the last council meeting, which happened right after our meeting. Anyway, okay,
I got some.
okay, yeah,
So I had reached out to Stephanie Johnson, for, through Dot. So I've been pretty vocal about conquering small projects first.
yeah.
So, obviously, that little spot there is kind of like a pet peeve of mine at Three Countries, that area there where it comes out onto the road. So reached out to her, and this Friday, we're gonna be meeting, with her, at 1:30, I think it is.
This is a Del representative, is that what you're saying?
It's
Yeah.
not, there'll be an engineer there. There'll be a representative from, Panoni Consultants, who I guess Del works with for engineering stuff, as well as, like design and stuff. So we'll meet there Friday to just
You're gonna be there, Tim, so you can
talk
tell them,
and
yeah.
just kind of like try to understand what they did the last time that they were there. One thing that she did say is that it is on the top 5
Oh, good.
to get corrected. Once they were trying to work on funding.
Great.
So she didn't say that
That's encouraging.
it's in conjunction with the Route 9 project or anything like that. She just said that it's one of the top 5s.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens, see what's said, and all, not to get hopes up or anything like that.
You know what,
So-
when you meet with her, I'm curious about whether or not the correction of the road, to stop it from from flooding, will involve also any kind of changes to the dike there. Or because it seems to me like, if they're not gonna, for instance, fix the parking lot, next to the Three Countries Pizza, what, is it just the road they can deal with? Or is there some?
Well, it could also be maybe the inlet, like the drainage
Yeah,
right
so like-
there.
Yeah.
If you look at them, there's 2 inlets
Yeah.
side by side there, probably like within, I don't know, 6 to
Yeah,
10
yeah.
feet of each other.
Right, yeah.
Right at that spot.
Mhm.
So just to get an idea of, like, what was the reason and what's the thought process that they just have one and then they added another because of it, just to help. So just to get a better understanding, because even now, if you go by there, that water is still like right up at that drain. So obviously it doesn't take much for the water to end up out on the road there.
Yeah,
So we'll find out what happens and see what they
Great.
say. I'm sure it'll be informational, because obviously there's stuff that we don't know and all
Okay.
that. So, and we're, gonna base it, off of safety, to try to hopefully, it might help it along. So.
great, thank you. And there's one other thing, I brought 3 copies of the vulnerability assessment and adaptation plan, because this was sort of the thing that we were basing a lot of our original work on for the task force. And I don't think you ever got this, did you, Mike? It's just, it's a lot, it was the result of a lot of research, but also community involvement and everything. So it's really interesting. I brought one for Florence and for
Thank you.
Alyssa, but I think everybody else got one at the beginning. Okay,
So the other document that a lot of work went into this one, it was done after that. If they
I
don't
know,
have
I just didn't want to
copies-
give the city office too much to do for one day.
No,
It's fine.
but for newer people who don't have this, I mean, AECom did this and it's really got a lot of great maps and information as
Mhm.
far as alternatives.
Yeah, I know.
But
I will-
I don't think Mike, you're.
No, they probably don't have that either, but I wanted to give them an actual hard copy, but I just did this today and I felt bad about it too much, but I'll bring it next month.
You don't have to go back.
Anyway,
Is there a digital copy?
Hmm?
Is there a digital?
I think I have a digital.
Mhm.
Yeah, that'd be
You want me to send?
yes,
it?
there is.
great, yeah. Okay.
I prefer to have a digital,
Uh-huh.
Really? I can't,
You have it?
I wanted something.
not a digital.
I think I have it in digital form.
If you
I
don't,
know
we
the
do,
city
so we
does.
can share
Okay.
that.
Yeah. Okay, so now is the time for public comments. Hold on one sec. Thank you for coming, by the way. Okay. All right, so anybody would like to have a comment? You're welcome to come up. And, typically say your name and your, address so that, Kathy had that.
Bill Emery from Bolton. Hey, Timmy, when you meet these guys on Friday, right at 6th and Chestnut, when you go through the stop sign intersection, as soon as you get to the grass triangle there across from St. Peter's, at the very beginning of the triangle is a storm drain. Years ago, when they did work on the road there, at that storm drain, they normally put silt fencing, that black stuff to protect around the work zone. They covered that storm drain and they never took it out, which stops water from going in the drain. And it's
Right.
been there for years, and it's like weeds are actually growing out of it, which prevents water from going in there, which is part of the problem in that intersection.
so.
Yeah, it's been there for years,
Hmm.
and I've noticed it for years, and this, when you mentioned it tonight, it just rang a bell.
And
So-
so we're at 6 and Chestnut,
When you go through the stop sign right in front of Three Countries,
right?
look, as you go to the grass triangle across from St. Peter's, immediately at the very point of the triangle, look at the very start of the triangle, look right there on the road.
On that
Coming-
turn,
Yeah, going into town,
Right.
right there on the very point, you'll see a storm drain there. And you can't miss it. You'll see there, the black silt fence is rolled up kind of, on each side of the storm drain.
So that's right at 6th and the cutoff.
6th and the cutoff there on Chestnut, yeah. But it's been there for years. It's gotta been there for
It's
5,
amazing.
10
It's
years.
Still there.
Yeah. So, but anyway, and something I just wanted to say, just again, on that topic, 6th and Chestnut. This is something I presented to, city council years ago. I presented them with photos of, the swamp, the dike. One of the reasons that it overflows there is because it's overgrown. The state a few years ago, maybe a year or two ago, they came in with a track hoe and kind of dug out along the road there next to the auto mechanics, if you've noticed,
Yeah.
to try to dig a trench out so water had someplace to go.
Yeah.
Well, I gave the city council pictures, an aerial shot of the swamp there behind Newcastle Middle and Van Dyke Village and all that. And it showed the dike with all these tributaries. This is about a 45-year-old picture of all the tributaries that were dug in off the main dike there. That gave the water someplace to go. And I know this from back then because I've lived here for 67 years. Back
So you're not a
then,
newbie.
yes, no, I'm not. I used to trap those swamps. Me and Keith Wilson and George O'Neill, we all used to trap these swamps. We knew these swamps. And that's what controlled the flooding back then.
Yeah.
And the council took it in good, good faith and presented it or mentioned it to the state. And the state basically told them to go pack sand.
Sorry, Bill, but your 3 minutes are up.
Okay.
I did want to mention that we had heard this before, and there is a theory that as soon as you clear those out, they'll re-silt up.
It takes a few years
Oh.
for that to
Oh, it
happen.
does, okay.
It does have to be maintained, but that is what will control that flooding. So, but anyway,
Okay,
just,
thank you very much.
That's helpful. Thanks.
It is very much, especially the drain.
and those pictures are floating around and I have more of them.
Okay,
Floating
all right.
In the council.
We're floating around.
Yeah, the council has it.
Yeah,
I don't know which group of council has them.
All right, okay.
Bill Bruce, 1301 13th Street. I've had some time to think, and now especially with potential grants and money coming in, even though I feel the last 2 years were an absolute waste of taxpayers' money, I feel that another year till the committee comes up for another evaluation, I'm all for going ahead and trying to do the best you can. Because again, from attending the meetings, 6 million, 10 million, 20 million, 40 million is not gonna solve our problems. So if in the next year or so, you at least get promising grants that if you complete this part of the project, will continue with money. Now I can tell you honestly, federal money, state money, 3 to 5 years, there is not one red cent except for grants from private groups that are willing to foot the money. So you are sort of on the right track to contact foundations and different groups that are not state or government funded. That's where you got to go, at least for now. Areas of flooding, and again, every time it floods, like I have nothing better to do. But right out here does flood. For some reason, there's backwash that comes out of the drains because in my little two-seater, I almost got stuck, and there were 3 cars that had to get towed.
You're
from-
talking about right out here and right on the Route 9?
Yeah,
here?
from
Okay.
across the street, somehow
Yeah,
there,
okay.
there's water coming up. The cemeteries, where it was backfilled, by the cemetery and where Brochus Slice in that area, because they backfilled, it's pushing water into the cemetery and onto 9. Mapco, again, I would reach out to them because I sat on the committee with Mr. Smith, where they promised that if we could agree and meet with them on projects, anywhere that work is done, they will flush out the drains. So it'll give you an extra bite for the money, not only the work, but hopefully curing some of the flooding. Plantings along the river does something, at least it acts as a slight buffer. But again, from what I remember, engineering and those things have to be done first. Could that eat up all the money? Yeah, you're looking at 15 to 20 million dollars just for that.
Okay, time's up. Thank you, Phil.
Mhm.
Yes, would you like to speak? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Mark Lorenz, and my wife and I, Lori, live at 59 The Strand, on the corner of the Strand and Harmony. It's the old Quiller home, or more recently, we bought it from Mr. Cochran. So we've been there, we moved in during COVID, so we haven't met most of you.
Is that where, did you buy it from John Cochran?
Yeah,
that's what he
okay,
said,
okay,
Yeah. And so I just wanted to make you aware of a little project so you're not caught off guard with this one. So a couple weeks ago, I started clearing out all the garbage that floods up at the terminus of Harmony there, at the end of Harmony. And the Public Works Department was very gracious. I think they felt sorry for me when they saw me out there trying to clear brush and things like that. So they came in and had the right equipment and cleared it all out, which allowed me then to get the garbage picked up.
That was a
plugged
pretty
up.
grody place there, wasn't it?
It still is. At least
Okay.
it's a little better. We're making some improvements. I put together a little proposal for a Delaware perennial garden at the terminus there. And once it's got to get okayed, supported by the city, I can move forward with funding for it. I've lined up with a local nonprofit to just beautify it a little bit. The other thing that the city is looking at is the engineer's been contacted to look at, there's a storm drain that takes the discharge off Harmony. And over the years, it's become damaged. And at one point it was straight. It's kind of helter-skelter right now. And so I've asked them to take a look at if they could realign, straighten out the discharge that's taken the street water out away from the city there. It's in kind of bad shape for that one. I think it's just going to take realignment. It may need some kind of a berm next to it to keep it from happening again as things and floods crash down the river and bump the discharge pipe out of whack. And then the final piece of it is with the perennial garden, I've taken a look at planting some marsh grasses there, just to, I don't know if it'll work, but I just thought we'd try to do something.
So
with
did
that.
you say you got a grant for that?
No,
Oh.
no, I tried to do it simple. So I talked to, if, I've just done the cleanup with the help of the city public works. I've got funding pending the city okaying to
Oh, I
move
see. From the
forward
city,
for
from
the
the city.
city property. But the funding to do the perennial garden, the marsh grasses, I've got a nonprofit that I've approached that is willing to fund that. But I need to get the city to okay it first because it's their property. So I'm not seeking city funding
Yeah,
for that
what
part. of it.
nonprofit is that? Because we're looking for
No,
money
no.
too.
Mark, could Arisafa help with that perennial garden?
I have that one in my back pocket in case this
Ah,
other
okay.
one falls through. Yeah, possibly, because it seems to be, kind of right up there.
I would think it might be a
And then
project.
the last piece of it is I've asked, in addition to, printing it up, get rid of the garbage, and we've done that, and we'll put a perennial garden in. And, we'll let the city do their magic with the engineer on realignment of the storm drain. Is there any support at all for putting in a berm there? Because it's eroded pretty significantly
Yeah,
there, and they
there
could
you
even
go.
connect to
Yeah.
my berm.
Yeah,
I think John Cochran put one in illegally, at some point in the distant
Yeah.
past, and it's worked actually, but
Okay.
if they want to.
I'm sorry to say your time's up, but
No
that's
problem.
really interesting. I think.
I just wanted you guys to
Yeah,
be
you know,
aware,
it's,
since if somebody.
Greg Brown, doing that with you. Do you know Greg Brown?
No,
Because this is not a surprise to me.
Okay,
And I'm
good.
trying to think,
I
who
put it
told
in
me
the,
about it?
I put it in the
was in the
newspaper as a thank you to the.
Was it in the
public works
weekly?
folks.
Yeah.
That must
Yeah.
be where I got it.
Probably, yeah, everybody reads it.
Okay,
Mostly just as a thank you to them.
all right. Well, thank you so much.
Sure, no
That's very good of you. Especially to get in there and, because I've been there with my dog and I've told my dog, don't go in there.
Yeah,
You know,
it's,
but anyway.
it's better now. Got all the needles and
Yeah.
every day I go down and. get more
Okay, so
garbage.
does anybody have anything else? Somebody want to move that we adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, that's great. I'm